Hey, welcome to the Weekly Wave. Man, midnight releases. I remember back in the day getting up at, 11:45, begging my dad to bring me to GameStop in the freezing cold weather. And the first ever midnight release that I went to was Call of Duty Ghosts. Yeah, that was a great game. But anyway, tonight I want to talk about the rise and fall of midnight releases. The little cultural campfires we built in fluorescent-lit parking lots where strangers became line buddies. Thermoses became trophies, and a sealed box behind the counter felt like Excalibur. We didn't invent staying up late for the sake of it, but midnight releases turned staying up late into a sort of ritual. They were a handshake between the anticipation and community. Think bookstores with paper signs and masking tape. Video game shops using color-coded wristbands like they were running Coachella. Movie theaters with hand-stamped tickets and a manager yelling, "No spoilers in the hall!" It was equal parts an event, endurance test, and a shared secret. What was the secret, you ask? That a Tuesday could be a holiday if you believed hard enough. So where did it come from? Scarcity, mostly. Scarcity dressed in hype's best clothes. Publishers and studios learned that the clock isn't just a measure of time, it's a stage. Midnight made us feel like we were at the starting gun of a culture, right? The street date was a finish line we were invited to cross together. You'd see pallets wrapped in plastic with "Do not open until" printed in front that practically scolded you. Employees had memos in all caps, and those memos had this aura like somewhere an executive would burst through the ceiling if a box cutter slipped open early. But the real draw wasn't the product. It was the prologue. The hours in line became a miniature society. There were campers with folding chairs that looked too serious for their owners, the optimists in shorts during December. It's not that cold once you stop feeling your legs. The spreadsheet guy who would memorize collector's edition SKU numbers, and the quiet kid with a handheld console. And also the person your friend swore was named Eric, even though he never introduced himself. You could measure the cultural temperature by the snack pile. Energy drinks for shooters, iced coffee for indie darlings, gummy worms for fantasy hardcovers, and a pizza box that somehow arrived grease side out. And then there was the soundscape. The crinkle of the shrink wrap, the faint whir of the receipt printer like a small robot clearing its throat, the collective ooh when the first person got their original copy. Midnight releases turned consumption into a chorus. We didn't just get the thing, we got the story of getting the thing. On the internet, your unboxing is your own. At midnight, the unboxing was the community's. It was ours. Economically, midnight kind of made sense, until it really didn't. For a while, the math was gorgeous. Staff a skeleton crew late at night, run a PR that really doesn't cost much, sell out of high-margin special editions, and ride the earned media wave. It was a supply chain magic trick. Synchronize a million micro moments to a single second, and you get headlines basically for free. Midnight meant fewer spoilers, cleaner street dates, and the kind of FOMO that politely printed itself on a receipt. But midnight was also manual labor for culture. It needs bodies, employees who nap after closing, unload pallets with reverence usually reserved for relics, and keep peace down the human embodiments of "there's enough for everyone, and if I don't get the glow-in-the-dark pin, there isn't." It needed security plans and no bathroom key after 11:30 signs. It needed the manager who had to explain that your pre-order tote bag did not include a tote bag for your tote bag. Still, we kept coming back because midnight was time travel. For a few hours, the calendar bent around us. The next day's thing was suddenly today's thing, and we were conspirators in the bending. You drove home with a shrink-wrapped future in the passenger seat, like it might unspool in the glove compartment if you took a sharp turn. Then, gently at first, the future stopped needing us to assemble in parking lots. 3 quiet revolutions arrived like helpful, slightly smug roommates. Digital distribution, streaming, and logistics that can put a package on your doorstep while you were still brushing your teeth in the morning. Preloads meant your game wasn't in a box. It was in your console already, asleep like a cat waiting for a laser pointer. Unlocked at midnight local time turned lines into just old living rooms. Movie midnight became Thursday 7 p.m. because somewhere along the line, we all agreed that midnight is, ironically, too late. And yes, this could be a part of just getting older, but it really did a damage to this culture, to something that we once found so sacred. The social part kind of shifted too. Lines were replaced by comment sections that bloom in the first hour like fireworks. Streams of first playthrough here and no spoilers please, and the occasional person live streaming 2 seconds ahead because their app buffered better. Instead of wristbands, we had countdown timers. Instead of the shared cold air, we had shared refresh buttons. The fall of midnight releases wasn't a crash so much as it was kind of like a soft landing on a very comfortable couch. Stores realized that the overtime, the security, and one-night sugar rush didn't balance out against a world that can sell 70% digitally before the lights went out. Publishers realized that a coordinated global unlock might reduce leaks, confusion, and the temptation for a warehouse night shift to accidentally let something float into daylight early. And the rest of us, well, some of us realized we like to sleep, or we developed a complicated emotional relationship with a play at 12 a.m. button that refuses to budge until 12:07 for reasons known only to the server gods. Then life itself barged in. Safety concerns, changing retail realities, and a certain global event that made lines feel like a group project no one wanted. For many, that was the quiet end of the line as a line. The ritual dissolved, like sugar and coffee. Sweet, still there, but no longer really visible. Now again, it's easy to say, that's progress. And it is. Accessibility increased. People who don't live near a mega theater or a specialty shop or GameStop now share the moment. People with disabilities or caretaking responsibilities or just a busy home life don't have to choose between the cultural conversation and their well-being. Midnight now means whenever you're ready, which is a kind of kindness wrapped in code. But there's a soft ache in progress too. The ache of missing the small frictions that made us more human together. The lime green wristband that bled onto your wrist in the rain. The store clerk who remembered your username before it was really cool. The whispered pact not to look at the spoilers that someone's cousin had already posted. And also the way a parking lot can smell like cardboard, but at the same time promise. Now, if you peel back the nostalgia further, midnight releases were classrooms. They taught patience to the impatient and extroversion to the shy. They taught logistics to kids who had never managed anything more complex than a group chat. We'll meet at 10. You bring chairs. I'll bring the snacks. Jess will scope the door. They taught us about value. How a thing can be worth more when you work for it, or when you wait together for it. And they taught empathy for retail workers, for whom midnight releases were often organized chaos. Good chaos, sometimes heartfelt chaos, but still chaos that needed a broom and a closing checklist. If you've ever said thank you at 12:05 a.m. to someone crawling into a stockroom, you know. So did midnight releases truly fall, or did they molt? The ritual moved from the sidewalk to the screen, from lineup to kind of link up. We now have watch priorities with synchronized apps, Discord servers that are buzzing at 11:59, and premieres that burst into existence globally, not neighborhood by neighborhood. The feeling didn't vanish. It took off its coat, sat down on the couch with us. We lost some magic, but we also gained reach. We traded a campfire for a constellation. And yes, little pockets persist. Indie theaters still do 12:01 marathons once in a while, usually for the kind of movie that rewards a sleepy brain with a weird plot twist. Local game stores host launch nights where people still smell that fresh new game smell right at the strike of 12. But the thing is, they're gentler, more deliberate, and less about scarcity and more about the ceremony. If you miss it, you can recreate it. You really don't need a permit. Turn a launch into a night ritual again. Make a quiet plan. Dim the lights, brew the nostalgic coffee that tastes like pencil shavings and determination. Put your phone on no spoilers mode. Invite a couple of friends who understand why the first few minutes matter. Tape a handwritten sign to your own door that says do not open until midnight, even if midnight is 9:27 p.m., because that's when everyone can make it. The point was never the hour on the clock. It was the moment on purpose. Here's the surprisingly grown-up truth beneath all the glow and show. Midnight releases worked because they gave us a safe way to care about something we love loudly. To stand outside and declare, this matters to me, without irony. As we've digitized, we haven't lost the need to care, we've just tucked it under blankets and bandwidth. Caring quietly is still caring. Sharing a link is still a line, just a lot shorter and a lot cozier. I don't want to romanticize the parts that were tough, though. The fatigue, the occasional elbowing, the inevitable when someone busts out a Bluetooth speaker with no volume control. But I do want to honor the sweetness. The way people would high-five strangers after the first cutscene or hold a door so someone could hustle to their car and start the soundtrack in their driver's seat, or even just bring the console in the back of their car. Yeah, I've seen that before. The way we built a tiny city that lasted 2 hours and then vanished without a trace, except for a few receipts and a story. So, to the midnight release, thank you for teaching us patience, logistics, bravery, and the proper layering technique for standing still in cold weather. Thank you for giving us a place to be a little ridiculous together, earnestly. Thank you for being a chapter and not the whole book. If you ever feel like culture moves too fast now, like we traded long, slow exhale for an instant unlock, remember, the magic was never in the minute hand. It was the togetherness, the community. And togetherness has 1,000 time zones. Most of them local, many of them in your living room. Set an alarm if you want, or don't. The point is, make the moment on purpose. If that moment hits at midnight, wonderful, good for you. If it lands at 8 p.m. with friends or 6 a.m. before work, that's just a new kind of midnight. It's your midnight. And when the screen lights up, or the cover opens, or the first note hits, take a small breath. Somewhere in a parallel parking lot of memory, someone is still shouting, "We're live!" and 100 people cheer. Thank you so much for listening.